Are we on? Okay, good evening. We're going to do the pledge and then start our village meeting. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. All righty.
Mayor, we have a special meeting first, Mayor.
Okay, good evening, everyone. 7:31 or so, and the exciting time. We're getting closer to Halloween, which in this neck of the woods, big happy times. I guess we're going to start with special meeting.
Yes, please.
And then go into our regular. Okay.
I'll call the roll. Trustee Yost.
Here.
Trustee White.
Here.
Trustee Deputy Mayor Lopez.
Present.
Mayor Levin.
Present.
Do not see Trustee.
Yeah, he said he might be on his way, but
Okay.
I think we'll start and we'll see what happens.
Village Board resolutions. Resolution A, Corporation Council authorizing settlement of litigation. Resolved that upon the recommendations of the Corporation Council and the Village's Outside Defense Council, the Board of Trustees approves the settlement of the case Jose Rifo and Miriam Molina versus Village of Austin, commenced in Supreme Court, Westchester County, under index number 54542/2018 for $15,000. And it is further resolved that upon review by the Corporation Council of the general release and stipulation of discontinuance with prejudice, the village treasurer is authorized to issue a check in the amount of $15,000 payable to the Hilpert Law Offices as attorneys for Jose Rifo and Miriam Molina. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Any comments? You have a comment? Stuart?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Resolution B, Ossining Police Department authorized traffic and software use and dissemination agreement. Resolved that following review by the Corporation Council, village manager is authorized to sign the TRACS, Traffic and Criminal Software Use and Dissemination Agreement, between the New York State Police, Westchester County Department of Public Safety as lead agency, and the Village of Ossining as participating agency for a term of 5 years, 2026 to 2030. And be it further resolved that it is the intention of the New York State Police to provide the TRACS software to any police agency in New York State free of charge, based upon NYSP support, staff availability, and the lead agency's ability to self-support. And be it further resolved that this is a renewal of the current 5-year agreement set to expire at the end of 2025. Do I have a motion?
Second.
I only have a question, Stuart. Remind me, is there any changes from this 5-year agreement to the one we're ending?
There are no changes, and Lieutenant Mayorana is actually on if there are any other questions from the board.
I don't think we discussed this, I think.
No.
Did we not? Oh, this is now on. Oh, so fill us in. Who's on?
Lieutenant
Mariana?
Mayorana.
Lieutenant Mayorana is on.
How are you?
Good. How are you, Your Honor? Madam Mayor.
The other one is the
I thought you
It's the mayor.
I'm sorry about that. So essentially, this is just a program that we use to write traffic summonses digitally, as opposed to writing them with pen and paper, and it also allows us to digitally create motor vehicle accident reports. And it's given to us for free by the New York State Police, and it just makes issuing a summons or writing a accident report a quicker and easier process for us.
Do you know if the agreement is any different than the one we're ending that's over the past 5 years?
To my knowledge, it's identical.
Except for the year change, it's the same.
The year, and I think the money probably, no?
No, there's no money involved.
It's just an agreement.
Provided by New York State Police.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we're in the middle of.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Resolution C, Ossining Police Department, Westchester County, Stop DWI Patrol Data Master Project. Resolved that following review by the Corporation Council, the village manager is authorized to sign the agreement with the County of Westchester through the Department of Public Safety Services for the village to participate in the Westchester County Stop DWI Patrol Data Master Project for a term of 5 years, 2026 to 2030. And be it further resolved that pursuant to the agreement, the village shall receive an amount not to exceed $8,400 per year, subject to the county's receipt of funds from New York State. And be it further resolved that this agreement is a renewal of the agreement scheduled to expire at the end of 2025. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Anybody, any comments?
And again, Mayor, this is the identical agreement, same
Okay.
amount of money.
All right.
There's 5. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to adjourn the work session?
The special meeting?
to special meeting, adjourn work session to go to special. Yep.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We are in the work session. Thank you, Lieutenant.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Hey, how's it going?
Where he is.
Looking at moving. Congrats.
Yep, looking good. We held up a couple of minutes, but then we weren't quite sure. It's all right. No problem. So now we're joined by trustee Fritchie. Welcome back. Of course you should say it's good to be back. There we go. I think your mic might need to be turned on. Stuart. What do we got? Do we want to do announcements?
I thought you had announcements.
Yeah, we do. Okay. I thought Stuart had something else. Dana?
I would just like to say, that a good time was had by all, at least 1,200 people who came to the, Haunted Kill, Trail of Terror event down at the, rec parking lot. The tickets were made available online. They sold out. We had a lot of people came and wanted to get tickets, didn't have them. So it was an in-demand event. And I did both nights. I worked as a tour guide and I'm still recovering. But a lot of people said that they had never been to Ossining before, had certainly never seen the Sing Sing Kill Greenway before, and couldn't wait to see it in the daytime. And that just reinforces the, to me, the belief that the Greenway really is a really unique venue. And the rec worked so hard, Bill Garrison, Veronica Roach, and the kids and everybody who works on this, the staff, I mean, they just really go all out, and people had a really good time. The theme was scary fairy tales, and there was DJs, and there was food, and there was drinks, and there was a real great community feel, a costume contest. And it was really fun, and it really is, or has become, an event that draws people to us as part of the whole Halloween in the Lower Hudson scene. Not that we'll ever be historic Hudson Valley, but it's great to kind of every year do something new, do something better, make it bigger, better, badder, scarier. So it was great. And congratulations to everybody.
Great, thank you. Yeah, you sort of go through the year and then October comes around, you sit there and go, whoa. I forget, like I live in the epicenter of the whole Halloween storyline. I drove through Sleepy Hollow. I made the terrible mistake of deciding to meet a candidate that's running for something for coffee. I mean, it took us an hour to find parking because everybody's walking around, because this whole area, and we're now like really because of this part of it as well. People come off the
So
train
give
and
a-
come here.
Shout out to the chamber, because we worked with them, and their businesses created kind of, associated events, and
Great.
it seemed like they were doing well downtown, and so that's was part of the idea. too.
Actually, business was hopping for the past couple of weeks downtown because of this time of the year. I think it's great. Sir, anything?
Oh, ma'am.
Okay. You don't. And do you have something? Well, welcome back. Looking good. Hope you're feeling well.
Making progress.
Great. Well, it takes a little bit. It's great.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I do want to thank trustee White for talking about the Haunted Kill. It was a tremendous amount of work and effort by the staff, but a good time was had by all, and everybody really enjoyed working on it too. So I'm very happy to hear that we were down there on Friday night and the businesses did seem to be very busy. So it was good to see, and it was great to see everybody out there on the kill and their costumes and everything else. It was a lot of fun. So if you missed it, be there next year. First topic is proposed changes to affordable housing policy. And if the board recalls, Jim Wendling from Wilder Balter Partners was here a few weeks ago to talk about their 34 State Street project and the requirements for affordability for home ownership versus rental. And it did require us to look at our affordable housing policy more closely and with some proposed changes. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Valerie and Stuart.
Okay, so, thanks, Karen. I think that sort of, sums up where we are, with why we're back before this board. Today I'm gonna talk a little bit about, we're gonna go through a little bit of like what I'm calling the who, what, where, when and how, associated with the affordable housing rules and regulations. And I'll walk you through each one, and then we can talk about why we're proposing some of these changes. We specifically looked at, based upon the petition, we said, okay, this is probably a chance to take a look at everything we have for both rental and home ownership. And then to look at what they're potentially proposing and whether it makes sense in terms of what the village has already in its affordable housing policy. So let me start off with who. The affordable housing law and rules and regulations specifically speak to renters and homeowners. And so I think based upon, looking at both of this, we are going to suggest that maybe trying to have both the rental and home ownership policies very similar to each other, as opposed to, right now, the petition was specifically for the home ownership, but this is something for the board's consideration to consider also having the rental and home ownership kind of reflect each other. The second component is where. And so right now in your affordable housing rules and regulations and the law, it kind of, the way it's kind of written, it specifically focuses on where the developments, assuming that the development is all, like the affordable housing development is all taking place in like one building. Right. And so the assumption is that, somebody would be coming in with 100 units and the affordable housing would be constructed there. You do have some provisions that allow for affordable housing to be constructed off-site, but not necessarily in different buildings on a particular project. So 34 State Street is a unique project in which you're going to have both home ownership and rental. The rental component is market rate and the home ownership is going to be 100% affordable. And what the applicant would like to do is have the affordable housing component be reflected in the home ownership as opposed to the rental. Because the rental right now is going to be 50 units of market rate, and then the home ownership piece is going to be 100 units of affordable home ownership. And so what they would like to do in totality, they have 150 units and 100 of them are going to be affordable. And they would like their 10% to be acknowledged as part of the affordable component, as opposed to having to put additional affordable units into the rental.
I just got, in that moment, I just understood what was being.
Right, I know, it's a little
sorry.
confusing, right? It took a while.
I don't get it. Okay, now I get it.
They don't want to set aside 10% of their,
Right, 'cause they already
no,
have.
I think that they already have it.
Part of the whole project,
Mm.
except the way the code is written, it doesn't specifically say that it can be anywhere on site. And in addition, some of the newer affordable housing funding streams and stuff like that, and I've seen this on a couple other projects that I've worked on, where even though it's meant to be integrated within the community, the way the financing structure is, that they have to be sometimes in separate buildings or able to be kind of sectioned off in terms of like legal documents, as well as tax maps and stuff, because of some of the funding streams. So this isn't going to be probably the first time the last time we see something like this. So we do have some regulations, some proposed language that specifically would allow for units to be anywhere. We specifically have it so that that the affordable housing units in a market rate housing building could be anywhere within the residential development, right? As opposed to specifically in the same building. So that is something that, and it's specifically so that the village board may allow that to take place. So it's not something that's automatically given. So this will allow you to have some sort of flexibility in terms of allowing for where, or identifying where those units would be located. The other thing we're proposing is when these specific affordable housing units need to be created in terms of the set aside. And the reason for that is we have a number of, when these rules and regulations, as well as the affordable housing law were put into place, you had more or less very few, if any, 100% affordable housing complexes. But now you have more of those. And technically, the intent of the law was supposed to be for when you're developing market rate housing, that there's a certain set aside of affordable housing. But when we have projects like, for example, the nursery that's being redeveloped up the street, that's 100% affordable housing. So therefore, that really wouldn't fall under this particular, or under the rules and regulations or the affordable housing law, because they don't even have a 10% set aside. It's 100% affordable housing.
100% set aside.
Exactly. So what we did do in here is also revise that so that it's clear that we're talking about market rate housing development as opposed to 100% affordable housing development. The other thing we also wanted to talk a little bit about was for how long. Again, the petition right now is requested to have for up to 30 years, or let me just get the language, sorry. Specifically, 30 years, or the term required by governmental entity providing affordable housing funding requires a law, or if required, the term required by a governmental entity providing affordable housing funding requires a longer term. So basically, they would like 30 years, or if there's another funding stream that requires a longer term. That is something that hasn't been finalized by this board yet, but we are recommending, or we wanted to kind of put forth, if you decide to go in that direction, would you want that also reflected in your rental units? And then the last thing is the income level range. So the way the funding stream is going to work for 34 State Street, they do allow for, or the way the funding works is that while they are marketing at 80% area median, I'm not marketing, they are setting the sales price at 80% Westchester County area median income. The program itself allows for a little bit of a band so that you could sell that unit up to somebody that's making up to 100% of Westchester County area median income. And this assists with some of the marketing. It also assists with, your potential buyers, so that you have this band between 80% and 100% average median income, but the unit itself will still be priced at 80%. So this is something, again, that they're asking to have modified, and we are also suggesting, if you're going to modify it for the affordable for sale housing, that you might want to consider modifying that for the rental as well. So we can go back through each one of these, but that's just in an overall summary of the changes that we have for you. So I don't know how you'd like to proceed with the discussion. We can go back through each one of them again and then have
I think we can look at the whole thing, and if
Yep.
anybody has problems, then we might have to chunk it out.
Okay.
You want to start?
One question. If we didn't do this with the first one you told us, if we didn't do it at all, where does that put them?
So for 34 State Street?
Yeah.
So if nothing is modified, they would have to have 5 affordable units in their rental. And they would also have problems with, I think then the affordable rental would have to then have in perpetuity. And so basically the simple solution would be that they would provide 5 affordable rental units. If for some reason the board agreed that they could count the homeownership units as their rental, then they start running into problems in terms of the terms for what the the term limits in terms of the funding, because they have up to 30-year, I mean, the affordability component would be 30 years as opposed to in perpetuity. And then they would also have an issue with the band, because right now we say no more than 80% AMI for average median income. Can you, for somebody, the income, excuse me, no more than 80% of average median income, that would be the maximum gross income somebody could make in order to buy that unit. And their funding stream allows up to 100%. So that's where you would have difficulty. So there's 3 different items that they would run into problems with. There's workarounds for each one of those, but basically those are the nutshell.
Thank you.
What's the? If the. At 80% of AMI,
Right.
how many purchase units are there? 150?
I'm sorry, trustee Yost, but it doesn't sound like your microphone is working. It's actually going in and out. Jesse, can you bring him another one, please?
No, I'll go closer. There are, how many of the purchase units are there?
There's 100 purchase units.
All right, so do they substantively believe that there is not a market for those 100 units if it's limited to 80% AMI?
Well, then I think the issue is you also are not supposed to sell it to any, for their funding stream, somebody cannot be contributing more than 33% of their income. So you wouldn't be able to get somebody at 50% AMI, at the average median income, to be able to purchase for the 80%, right? Because that would be more than 33% of their income. So then you have this very narrow bandwidth. And I think that's their biggest concern, is that it would have to be somebody that's no more than 33% of their gross income and maximum 80%. So I think the math there is very, might be somewhere, and I'd have to do the math, but you might be looking at a thing from 75% to 80%. It might be something like that narrow of a band.
Got it. What's Westchester AMI right now?
127, something like that?
At 100%, I'd have to look it up. It does.
You're looking it
it's
up?
Based on, I don't know. That's okay. For a single person, it's $103,000, 2 people, 118.
Oh, okay.
3 people, 133, and 4 people, 147. And 80% is, for a single person, it's $82,000, and it's 118 for 4 people. So that band, does give you a latitude to be a little broader. It does become more difficult for a sale property when you limit the band too narrowly. Thank you very much.
Okay. No, I was just trying to understand I was trying to understand the math, right?
Yeah.
And so if it's, essentially $30,000 difference, and so it's $3,000, it's what, $5,000 annually
Right,
in terms of payments.
right.
That kind of gets covered. So, all right. Is the crux of it, though, is that they don't want to build the 5, like, it starts with the 5 affordable rentals.
Yes, I mean, I think
that's
right.
fundamentally.
Fundamentally,
that's
I
what
think
it
that's
comes down
right.
to.
They would like to be able to have those units, the homeownership
Like,
units.
all these other questions are only an issue if they don't do the 5 affordable units.
Right. I think in terms of priorities, not that everything has to be associated with them, because I think there's a number of items, especially, I think it would be helpful to be able to have the flexibility to move units where necessary or where most needed in a particular project, right? In this particular project, you have clearly a very specific affordable housing and market rate component, and one is homeownership, one is rental. But there might potentially be other projects where it makes more sense to have like certain units in certain buildings versus other buildings. And maybe it's something even of like desire from the village board. Like if, for example, you want more of like certain bedroom units versus other bedroom units, right? So that's one thing that I think that's probably something worth considering and maybe amending, and also clarifying that it should be for your market rate unit developments as opposed to your affordable unit developments. I think the issue with the term, like the 30 years, I think they might be a little bit more flexible on that element, but I think they really want to be able to have the affordable component from the home ownership to count for the market rate.
Got it. And then just the technical question as you were going through, I would assume that development, you would define that kind of as like a single site plan.
That's correct.
That's kind of how you would
Yeah.
say it. If you've got a site plan, within the site plan,
Right.
this is the flexibility.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm just gonna, are you done? I'm gonna jump on that, because to me, it's like reasonable to say it's 150 units, 2/3 are all affordable. 1/3 is market rate. We looked at how, in theory, they want to split up the bedrooms and the 2 units on top. And I think it's a fair request, and it is fair for one site plan. And we may have more of those, they've got other things going on, the parking lot, the this, the that. To me, 2/3 are all affordable. And if they need to increase, it seemed to me, I read it a little differently. It seemed to me that's really about, they're a funding stream. Their life becomes a little bit easier if they meet all the qualifications
Yeah.
of what their funder would like them to do. And unless I can think of a downside to that, I remember all this affordable housing is about, this is a way to increase affordable housing here. It's like, not only were you correct in saying, in this point in our history, we have a lot in the pipeline. More importantly, I'm thinking 2/3 are affordable, 1/3
Right.
market rate, like, it's pretty good. Like, I'm living with that, so I'm okay with it personally. And I didn't hear if you're okay with all three, because I think your original question is, do you want to, bunch it out or whatever, or chunk it out? So are you good with all three?
Yes.
Okay, and are you good with, because I didn't hear.
No, not right.
You're
I'm okay. I'm
thinking-
okay with the shifting of the 5%. Like, I agree with your logic.
10%
The
actually.
10%. I
units,
agree. The
10%.
5 units, 10%. I agree with that within the site plan.
But I'm
I'm-
feeling you're not
I'm-
okay with some, which parts are you not okay with? There are 3 pieces here.
The changing the rental unit to terminate at 30 years,
Ah, I
Right.
see, okay.
which to me is,
Right.
that's, it's kind of like, the point of affordable housing setback is to make it affordable, right?
Yeah, but the rental is, the rental are not the
market rate.
affordable.
I know,
pieces.
but she was also saying though that like if you change the law, you would change the law so that for all of them
Right.
would
Oh, so
be.
you're saying we're changing the laws for,
Being built on Croton, is that after 30 years that can go market rate?
No, that's
No.
50 years pursuant to the funding
Yeah,
stream
that was
provided by the
different.
county.
So a
Yeah.
lot of this is done through the funders, like,
Yeah.
we've had this before of, this is not actually that unusual. 30 years, part of it is a pilot discussions that they get into. So this is not that unusual, actually. So I don't think we're passing it for everybody.
99 years.
Right, right, no.
Are we?
So we were just for the 30 years. The first question is whether you're okay with the 30 years written for the affordable, for the homeownership, right? Which
Right.
was in the petition.
Home ownership
Right.
affordable.
And then, but we were bringing to the board that if you're gonna be okay with the home ownership affordable, whether you want to consider having similar language in the rental affordable.
I see.
Or would
Rental-
you, but we
Yeah.
could keep those separate.
So,
Particular project.
okay, so
Yeah,
that,
separate from this
so
particular project.
I agree. I did not, thank you. So I agree with Pat. That it's not that I'm for or against it. I see no reason at this
That's
point.
fine.
Next time somebody has the funding and they say I need 62 years because that's what my funder, then we'll,
Right.
or 30, whatever
That's
the
fine.
number is, we'll deal and see how wide do we want to make it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
So
get,
that was the part that.
that was the
that
second
was-
part. What was the third chunk?
The site plan piece was fine.
The income, right, the income,
Which is what I don't understand.
the 100%, right?
Yeah, from
Okay.
80% to 100%
Okay,
for
so we'll
the,
get to that when Dana speaks, but I just wanted to say that, okay, so we're
Yeah.
good. Bob's good with everything. you're like, "Ah,
One-
I
one-
don't see a need for number two.
Yeah, one more,
Leave it as
can I
is.
ask one more
Yeah,
question?
go.
Just, for the affordable, for the affordable purchase units,
Yes.
would these follow the process that a lot of the other ones have, where it's like open to lottery to anybody? Or is this, because it's a different funding stream, does this follow a different kind of process where
there
it'd be
was-
more associated with?
Well,
you
let's
know,
finish the
local-
question, but yeah.
Where we could potentially have more local.
We were told that about up to about 30% with all of this would be first for current Ossining residents.
There appears to be some latitude to preserve, I don't know if it's 20 or 30% of these for local use. At either rate, it would be lottery for local versus lottery for, general public.
Mhm.
My understanding is that it's based on need and certain demographics, which I believe we would qualify for. I think it's always open to be challenged. I think that's the issue, is if I'm not correct.
You would need to see the marketing plan
Right.
that the developer submits for its funding, because that's required. So I can't comment on what it would.
So we don't know
But-
for
but-
sure yet.
But that's the key question to ask of the developer,
Right.
is what does your marketing plan provide for?
Okay.
And when do we do that?
I don't know at what stage he has to have that done for
You can
what's
always
called the
ask him.
AHOP financing.
Right.
Who's the
But-
one, are you the contact person for speaking with the developer?
Well, I
Who's-
think
Who's speaking to the developer?
we all, I was gonna say, it's
Depending on the
collective,
issue, but
right?
I speak with them.
Yeah.
often.
Right, so here's what we were told in the beginning. I'm going to remind everybody. It started at 33%, then it casually went down to 30, now I'm hearing 20 to 30. The goal here.
Yeah.
The goal here is 30%. The goal here is that current Ossining residents, not the people that moved in 30 days ago, that there has to be some parameters, because that's another commitment we made to the community. It wasn't just a nice to have, it's one of the selling proposition to allow 150 units to be built on this property. We're not going to start shaving on the sides. So if a marketing plan is where we would find out what they believe they can have, and I think the developer genuinely wants that to happen. I don't think
this is
anybody's
a
trying
developer
to.
Issue, by the way, the developer could care less whether the people come from Ossining or the other communities. It's the state and the Homes and Community Renewal, because in the past, the local, preserving housing for local people has been used by some communities as a discriminatory tactic to keep people out of the community. In a socioeconomically diverse community, that's not the case. You have people but in a more affluent community, a more homogeneous community, the reason that they've had these laws that you can't prioritize local is because it's been a discriminatory tactic. So this really doesn't have anything to do with the developer. It's what the state will allow, and that's where the marketing plan.
Who's putting the marketing plan together?
The developer will have to put the marketing plan together, but we would be assisting in providing the demographic information that
So
would
I'd
make
like,
that
I'm
case.
asking that it's that wheel start being put into motion, because it's not a by the way for me, it's actually really important. It's a big win. I work in Ossining. This is like where my people are here. I'm not all
Right.
that interested in the world affairs. So it would be really a big deal if we can get that wheel going to see where we are, whether we're 20, 28, 26, 30, whatever, because I don't want to hear that it's 3% when we're all the way down the road and made all these changes and feel like, oh, you tried, but it didn't work. I don't want to hear that. I want to know sooner, because it's a really important piece of it. So anybody who's doing the talking, for
Yeah, we
me,
can
that's a
start-
really important, the condominiums is super important. Ownership, really important, because it's a beautiful piece of property. But right behind that, number 2, isn't all the other stuff. It's this piece that says that our people, like, who live here would get something out of it, and an opportunity where they can, because normally, as I know, that they can't. This would be a big deal for this community. Anyway, so that's my PSA, and we're, I think, lined up. Bob's lined up because he'd like one more thing than maybe we're doing, but I'm sure that we can discuss that. Gentleman and then lady.
Thank you. Valerie, can you please explain the last piece? That you went through like a few pieces, the
Right.
last one.
Oh, so are we talking about the range?
Yeah,
Okay.
the band.
I was trying to remember what I talked about.
Last piece was the band.
I wrote down the last piece. I couldn't understand it enough even to
So-
tell you what the,
Band,
I got So-
that part.
They would, so the petition is asking for if the units are gonna be priced at 80% Westchester County area median income. And what they'd like to be able to do is, right now, currently in our rules and regulations, we basically say it's 80% price and homeowner cannot make more than 80% average area median income. What they're asking for is that they price it at 80% area median income, and that they can sell the property to somebody that makes somewhere between 80% and 100% area median income.
okay. I understood that. And the first one was around kind of, can you move around where the
Yes.
pieces are? What's the second one?
There was the moving around, there was the affordability period, the time period.
And that's what,
Right.
that's what trustee Yost,
30
Right.
year that piece,
yeah. Okay, so I'm clear all around. I'm good.
and you're good.
Yeah.
Dana?
Well, does making the ownership units available to somebody making more matter?
Yep,
Nope.
no?
Now, I know this is math, is not my strong suit, but I'm gonna do my best. You're gonna help me.
I'm gonna try.
So if you're basically saying we're gonna price it at X, but if you're making more than 80%, if you're making up to 100%, then you're still qualified to buy it.
Yeah.
But so what you're saying is you're making fewer affordable to people who make less money. Aren't you? Aren't you saying, what if, I mean, they're now available to people who make more money than other people?
Yeah, but the amount is like,
The
It's-
amount is still under
it-
what, it's well under what the average home is. So if
Right.
somebody at 100% area median income still cannot afford a home in Westchester County.
yeah,
So
anywhere in
it's
Westchester.
a slightly bigger spread, but it doesn't have a huge impact because technically you could probably go to 120%. And the subsidy is, so it's the way they do it to make sure. And I do think too, it has more to do with the financing of a home versus a rental that will affect your total income and the percentage of your income that you're paying towards your home cost, but your total home cost. But I think that in this case, the home ownership is not a deeply affordable program. It's a moderately, it's a moderate subsidy for really it's workforce housing in the truest sense of
Yeah.
the word, for people who are not making $250,000 or more a year in Westchester, which I believe that's where you're talking about being able to afford to buy a home in Westchester.
Yeah, I actually saw it, I first went to where you're going, but then I went to, it's not a big wide opening. It actually allows a few more people to buy at a really subsidized rate, who really are not making a lot of money. You're talking about a $5,000 differential or something.
So if you have a family of four, 80, I'll talk here. So if you have a family of four, and it was 80%, they would make up to $118,000. And this is extending it to $147,000 for a family of four. And so it does, that's at 100% AMI. So it does add more, but if you make $147,000 for a family of four trying to buy a home, it's still difficult to reach.
Right. And
Almost impossible.
And their requirement is, they're also allowing up to 33% of your total gross household income. So you could technically get somebody that's a little bit below 80% that also could qualify.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm gonna say most developers would be happy to have anybody in any sort of income to be able to purchase. The difficulty is that once you start decreasing it, too much further below like 75% or so, then you're starting to cause situations where people are paying 40%, 50% of their income to housing, and that becomes an unsustainable situation. So when you're doing for sale, you have to kind of set a sales price. And that's the sales price of this particular program is 80%.
So, may I, real quick?
Yeah. go ahead.
So what is the target sale price at 80% AMI?
So that I can't give you an answer right now, because that also includes principal, like they have to take into consideration the interest on a 30-year fixed mortgage, and then also real estate taxes and any condominium fees. So all of that would have to be worked into the calculation. And
When do we get that?
we can talk to them about, I'm
Oh,
sure they
yeah.
already
Get a
have it. Yeah.
better, we could
Yeah.
get a better general sense of
Right.
what
Right.
it would be.
Yeah, I mean, a
Um,
range.
Yeah,
They-
absolutely.
You know, oh,
They actually mentioned something in one of their presentation, what they expected a round to be, 300 and something, 400, I don't remember the
and
number.
most
Right.
of these.
But I think
it-
they have it.
Yeah, most of the differences that we're talking about aren't necessarily, with the exception of the set aside units in the rental. The other changes are changes because that is what homes and community renewal, which is, so it's important. It's not that the developer's like saying, we want to go to 100%. That's what a homes and community renewal, the people who subsidize the property allow in their policy for those sales. So that's not really a developer request. It's just that our code doesn't allow for that because we haven't had that.
In other
for-
communities, that's not an issue. It depends on your code
Right.
and,
Yeah,
and this organization, it's a nonprofit, right? Is it a nonprofit, Homes Renewal?
it's a state agency.
It's a state agency.
It's a
Their
division-
purpose is to make affordable
York
housing
State.
available to people.
Yeah, it's the state agency for housing.
So I did some quick math on my own. So at the 80% for a family of four, it's roughly 120,000 in income. At 33% of that makes it $3,300 a month total for principal, mortgage, interest, taxes, and everything, which is still a relatively small number
Ownership.
for ownership.
Yeah. For a family.
Yeah, for a family of four.
With,
You have to get insurance, I assume, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
It's all in. It's all in. So
That
it's
would be a
still,
part of that.
still like relative to owning a $600,000 house. You know, it's gonna be a lot less than that. So.
Well, I mean, I'm all for making these concessions, I suppose, but I too am concerned that our 30% set aside for local residents could be eroded away. And, it's really important. So
That's- Yeah, I think this is like a sort of glitch in the affirmative housing, affirmative marketing policy for affordable housing. So while it may help to make sure that communities that are maybe trying to be a little bit more selective in who they let into their community, it may force them to not be able to have any sort of practices that are essentially discriminatory. It kind of works in the sense differently if your community is already diverse and actually really the people in your community need the housing. I will say this, and I'm not, I think we should definitely push, and this is really a state issue and something that we could probably talk to our legislators about as well. But the reality is when you do affordable housing in a community, even if there is a lottery or first come, first served, it kind of doesn't matter. The vast majority of people in your community who need, they apply in disproportionately higher numbers. So it bears out that it doesn't mean that people in the community don't have a chance. They probably have a better chance than people who aren't from the community because they're the ones who tend to apply. But again, it's not the guarantee that you would like to be able to say that I think is important to tell people because that's a perception. I mean, it does bear out in the statistics, but it's, a lot of people may feel that because it isn't specific to local people that won't apply to them. And that is often things that I've heard in the past as
Right.
well.
Do you know if, when one applies for a lottery for affordable housing, whether they have to present their financials at that time?
No, the way it does is I forget on a lottery, I think you get pre-qualified, but you get pre-qualified on a lottery, but then you still have a final thing. So usually it's like, I forget exactly what.
Probably a
the
few numbers you have to
website, like,
fill in.
Yeah, you have, uh, there is a pre-qualification, but because your income can change at any moment from the time, before you actually get the unit, you have to resubmit and verify. Probably more due diligence at the final stage.
I mean, the other thing I'll say about not having 10% set aside in the market rate rentals and having the affordable home ownership and rental are different. I mean, saying that, you're basically saying rentals and ownership are equal here. You're saying that they're equal, so we can now make, we don't have to make these, rentals affordable. It's a different person, it's a different, I mean, it's still necessary, I mean, true, we are going to have a lot of other affordable units. But it's just, to me, renting and owning aren't the same thing.
Yeah, but there are affordable rentals being built everywhere in Westchester. I know the big C's, not in every community, but Croton, we have a whole bunch of rentals. What we don't have is ownership. Like affordable ownership is actually the problem, and nobody's building single-family homes anymore. And for people who want to own something and get some equity or get generational wealth or stay multi-generational within a community,
I understand. that.
that's like the beauty of this whole thing is that's the biggest selling proposition for me in this conversation, because there's rentals are being built. Like even if you don't find them here in Austin, which we're doing, whether it's the seniors, whether it's the 30 Water, Croton just did it, New Rochelle, White Plain. I mean, there's lots of rentals. What there isn't a lot of is actually affordable ownership.
No,
And I think
understand that.
that's why this is such a big deal. The piece about, that's why to me that rental versus the ownership, I think it's a nice split. 2/3 is ownership, 1/3 is market rental, all
But if
in one
rentals,
place.
if those rentals were a standalone development without any attachment to the ownership component, they would have to do the 10%.
That's
set
correct.
aside.
That's correct.
So we're saying, no, you don't have to do that because you have 100 affordable ownership.
Right, because it's all part of one
Well, it's
development.
because one site,
Right.
it's one
Yeah, 'cause
site.
it's
right.
one site.
It's one site, the parking, the grass, everything they're building, the side, everything that goes is one site. So that's why, that's how we would do it going to other things.
Right,
It's not, you can't be the same developer building, two different sites. It has to be, right?
Right.
Somebody has that. It has
That's
to be on the
correct.
site map together. So where did we land on this, people? Dana? You're the only one I think that hasn't. Where are we landing? There are 3 buckets here that were being asked.
yes.
I'm landing on. Could use a little more information. I think, maybe. I mean, I guess. Ugh. I mean, it comes down to 5 affordable rentals that aren't going to be there, right?
Or 100 affordable condos. It all,
Yeah.
it's a
Not
little
everybody's gonna
different
be able to buy
perspective.
those.
Yeah.
I mean, there are plenty of people who aren't gonna be able to buy those, but they could rent.
Well, the developer actually thinks that when people see the prices for this, I asked if he was worried about selling. He goes, worried. It's gonna be a line of people for this. People want to own. They want to live in a place where there's ownership with a pool and all that. Because at the lower rates, you can't have any of this stuff. So, I guess it's just a different perspective.
Just saying that's fewer affordable units available to people. That's all.
No,
That are not ownership, that are
right.
rent. Because even there are people who can't afford affordable ownership either. And they still have to rent because they don't have a down payment or whatever the situation is, but.
Okay.
I'm a little confused. You need to. On that, because we got a whole building that's affordable. So I don't understand where the 5
But-
units are coming in.
Because it's ownership and rental are not the same.
Correct,
thing.
ownership's separate than the rental.
No, I understand that.
So I'm a little confused where you're saying the ownership's not gonna get affected by the percentage. it's, the whole place is gonna be within you got 150 units that are affordable.
No, you have 100 units affordable condos, 100 units affordable condos, 50 market rate rentals.
All right, well, I'm not explaining myself there. I'll talk to you about it.
Okay, so I don't.
Can I,
Sure.
I'll take a quick crack. So I think it seems like we have 4 so far
Yes.
that are okay, but if I understand your concern, Dana, is on balance, looking at the total number of affordable rentals in the village, that number, if we choose to go in this direction, will be lower by 5 units compared to if we didn't go in this direction, it would be 5 units higher. And from your perspective, that is a net benefit. You would strive to have more affordable rentals because when you compare to affordable ownership options, you feel like there are different folks that would be taking advantage of those and that the affordable rental folks would be missing out. And as a result, you don't feel comfortable moving in this direction because you'd be moving in this direction at the sacrifice of these folks. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And as I understand it, what Bob is saying is when you look at the numbers, there aren't huge gaps in who these people are and who these people are. And while there are tangible differences in ownership versus rental, we're not talking about radically different populations of people. The group of people that would be interested in one versus the other, particularly when you look at the scale, 100 versus 5, the net number of people that are going to be able to afford a place to live is going to be more as a result of going in this direction, which I think is what is pushing him. Correct. And so that I think it's what you value. More affordable units generally or more affordable rentals specifically.
Affordable. From being available. So, but I understand. I mean, I understand, I get, I get the argument, but that just wanted to voice, that was just something.
Right. No, I think that's factually correct. I think we understand that. For me, I look at the whole village and how much we have senior affordable, the other pieces that are being built, in addition, all the 10%ers. I look at the whole portfolio and I think it's a pretty healthy way to look at it. And they're gonna be able, in the funding and the agency that looks at the funding has a reason why they want to do it. They want to get people in here. And it's a nice mix. So I'm staying with, consistent with where I am. Anybody change where they are? Okay. So your question on the 3 buckets, 1 bucket is a yes. Did we have somebody that still is feeling like, that 30-year versus perpetuity, but it would only be for this, right?
Right, it would only be for the affordable.
So after 30 years, those won't be affordable condos anymore. Is that what that means?
Yeah.
30 years is not a very long time. So you're basically saying in 30 years, they're gonna be $500,000, $600,000 units. Depending on where we are in 30 years, and I'm not trying to think that far ahead, it's kind of scary, but it's not a lot of time. But
It's the only way you do the affordable right? That was
That
one of
is,
the.
that is that is the program,
Right.
right? Now, that is their program. That is what they're petitioning to change the language for.
And that's, when we say that is their program, that is.
I mean, the state's
of New York.
program.
So just, I think it's just important because we're getting conflated, because from the developer's perspective, once they're sold, they're sold. Doesn't make more money.
Oh, I
in the
understand
future.
Right.
My
It's the
understanding from
state.
homes and community renewal is that it's a 30-year, and again, it's not unusual we have a lot of properties that have 30-year affordability rental projects that have 30-year affordability timelines. Sometimes they go market rate, more often than not, though, they're bought by another investor who takes the tax credits, because the tax
Okay,
credit
never
market
heard
is a viable business. So doesn't always mean in home ownership, the person investing, part of the home ownership model is to allow people to benefit from the wealth creation that you get from owning, the generational wealth. So part of the 30 years is it does make it slightly more appealing to people to buy something, even if they may not live there for 30 years. But the idea is that they did, that they can then make more money the way other people have. So again, it's not the developer is probably agnostic on this, doesn't really care, but the homes and community renewal, the idea of most of these programs is really to start to provide opportunity for people that doesn't exist for various reasons. But in home ownership, the idea that you can invest in something and ultimately
Build equity.
build equity and sell it, it's, a way to, it does make it a little bit more appealing on the sale side, but it also does enable people who might not ever have been able to purchase something and build generational wealth and ownership wealth to do so.
Which I think this program started, if I understand correctly, a couple of years ago, because at some point, while you're able to afford the rental, what I think they've learned is you're building no equity at all. And for those people that would like to be able to afford something and own something, this is an option. It's not the only thing out there. And I think New Rochelle just completed, is it New Rochelle that has one?
Are they affordable?
Yeah, the
I mean,
affordable condos. It's a relatively new program that they're
Yeah,
trying,
it
because
is
they've
very new.
discovered that there are people that would like to buy and build some equity over time. And I don't think investors can buy. You have to actually live in these things.
That is an area, though, if the board wanted to say we want the affordability period to be longer, that is within the latitude of the board, and I don't think that's the issue that the developer has with this.
Right.
So what are the options for the years?
So the-
Anything or there's
right,
some
so the-
recommended?
I'm gonna say that, well, the petition is the 30 years, or it could be more if funding, if another funding stream requires more, a governmental agency requires more. That's, again, this is what the petition has. This is up to the board, whether you want to allow for the 30 years or whether you want to require more than 30 years for this.
So I think I'm stuck on if we say no to 30 years or less, what happens to the?
Well, then, right now, your code is in perpetuity, so it'd be 99 years.
Will they get their funding based on that?
They will.
They'll get their funding based on it. Their funding for the condos won't be jeopardized. It just is the Homes and Community Renewal Program is for 30 years. If the village wanted to say in perpetuity or 50 years, or I guess you could say 37 years, I don't know, you
Whatever
probably
the
could
number
say
is, okay.
you want it, it's really sort of,
I think
don't-
5 of the units would be then in perpetuity. The other ones might still be just the 30 years.
right.
Okay.
So it would be the 5 that would be considered the set aside.
Right, as part of this.
Right.
So here's what I'm hearing right now. I'm hearing unsureness in your voice.
Yes,
So-
we would have to confirm that, but I believe it.
No, I don't have
yeah.
to, but can somebody confirm?
Yes,
On this issue? So on the 3 buckets, bucket number 1 and bucket number 3, I think we're okay on in the
Yep.
majority, not maybe unanimously. Bucket number 2 with the years and what happens if you vote one way, the other way, no way, all the way, whatever?
okay,
And what are the years? Let's make it 43, but that's not good. They would have gone up to 40, but not, I don't know what happens based on what we vote, okay? I don't mean legally what happens. I don't know what happens to the funding and to the project. And I'd like to know the downside of the vote.
okay, we can do that.
Okay.
And not a guessing, but like just
Right.
ask them.
Yeah,
So we'll ask on that, and then also on the marketing plan for the local. So
Right.
those are
Yeah,
the 2 things.
but
we'll
we-
talk
and-
about.
might wanna talk to
and the
Homes
prices that
Community
they're-
too.
Yeah, and the prices they're thinking of for the affordable condos. I mean, I heard the prices. I thought that was really good prices. I'm envisioning, and you're right, it is a lot based for starting teachers, starting cops, like that can no longer afford to live here, that used to be able to have those jobs and live here. I think would be a nice mix in our portfolio of seniors and waterfront, all affordable. I think that would add to our mix.
Okay, so I'm gonna suggest doing is we'll get answers to those questions, and then we'll revise, both the rules and regulations and the affordable housing law based upon the decisions that were made here tonight, and then we'll highlight the ones that are still outstanding. Okay,
That sounds like a plan.
all right.
Thank you,
Thank
Valerie.
you.
Next up, Cablevision, cable franchise renewal. Stuart Kahan.
Thank you. We're joined tonight by Frank
Thanks, Val.
Oliva, who is the Senior Director of Government Affairs for Optimum, which is Cablevision. This board will recall that it recently approved the renewal with Verizon. So now we are dealing with our other cable provider, which is Cablevision. The two agreements are very, very similar and actually pursuant to state regulation. They really have to be. There are a few differences I'll just go into with you now. One is the term would be 5 years as it is with Verizon. There is a 5-year renewal on this one. The Verizon does not have a 5-year renewal. The other difference relates to the PEG money. PEG is, remember, is basically the public access, the education and governmental channel. What Cablevision is proposing is $1 per subscriber per month. They are currently paying $1.35 per subscriber per month. I can tell you without going into specifics, because it's information that could only really be discussed in executive session, that there has been a significant decrease in the number of subscribers. We discussed this with Verizon as well. And so that explains, one, the shorter term. It also explains the drop in the PEG. We have seen the PEG money drop anyway. It also affects the franchise fee that we get, because the franchise fee is a 5% of gross revenue. Gross revenue is based in most part upon what your subscribers are. If you don't have a lot of subscribers, that number drops as well. So, but other than that, this agreement is essentially, and Frank, correct me, this is essentially a mirror image of the Verizon agreement, and would go through the same.
That's correct.
It'd be a public hearing. It would then ultimately go up to the Public Service Commission and go from there. But this would be the agreement, same locations, same provisions as basically are in the Verizon agreement. I just wanted to highlight for you what are those two areas of difference between what is the Verizon agreement and
Just remind me, what's the re-up, the 5-year re-up? What does that look like? You said it's 5 years plus another 5.
They have a 5-year renewal. This one
Oh.
provides for an automatic, not an automatic renewal, a renewal which is, exercisable by Cablevision.
For how much?
Upon mutual consent.
Oh, hello, sir.
Go
Sorry.
ahead, Frank.
Hello,
Hello.
that's correct. Yeah, no, because Verizon is only had a 5-year term and our prior contract was 10 years, and not sure what Verizon is looking to do in the marketplace and in the foreseeable future, but we want to make sure that we are committed partners with the village. So the idea was to have a 5-year renewal included in this. It would be a continuation of the existing contract in the same terms upon notice 3 months prior to expiration. It is upon mutual consent. So if at that time the village board decided that they had terms that they wanted to change and to negotiate, obviously we would welcome those discussions and not exercise the renewal.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for coming as well tonight. Is there anything
Of
else
course.
you'd like to add? Well,
have
you here once in 5 years?
I love coming to Ossining, Mayor. And I wish I was there in person. I actually have a sick 2-year-old that is in the
sorry to
crib
hear
right
that.
now. So it was tough to get away, and my wife unfortunately wasn't able to be here tonight. So
quite all
I'm
right.
kind of doing double
No
duty. But the only thing I would add is as Stuart mentioned, with respect to the subscriber loss, what we're seeing is just a change in trends on what people how they, view content, let's say. It's no longer really the traditional cable model. I mean, we're still committed to the traditional cable model. We still believe in it. We are fighting tooth and nail with the programmers who are, consistently raising the cost, which is a direct correlation to the cost of cable subscriptions. As they increase their cost on us, our costs increase, and people cut the cord, and that impacts the franchise fees. But what we are doing is we are trying to find other ways of creating affordability for our customer base, whether it's through tiered pricing, affordable options on the broadband side, on the internet side. We recently, last month, voluntarily upgraded our speeds for our affordable broadband product, which is Optimum Advantage Internet, from 100 megabits per second from 50 to 100, and that's a $15 price point, which is really what we believe is significantly helpful to the lower income populations. We've also streamlined that enrollment process for residents, and currently are waiving the eligibility verifications for that product. So, we recognize, our support and partnership with the village, not just on the cable side, which obviously this is a cable contract that we're discussing tonight, but we are, trying to meet our subscribers where they're at, to try and help with the affordability situation currently. So, that's really what we're trying to do. If there are any other questions on the contract specifically, or on anything else Optimum related in general, I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Okay, any questions, people?
Hi, Frank.
Hello.
I have a question. I'm not sure if it's for you or for our corporation counsel, but the money that would be coming to the village, specifically and maybe this is all one and the same, the $1 per user per month. As that decreases over time, is there a sense of what the impact is down the line once that number gets low enough that it won't actually pay for the things that it's currently paying for?
Well, the PEG money, let's separate the two out. The PEG money has to be specifically used for equipment.
Capital.
Things along that. And keep in mind, we still had PEG money coming in from Verizon. So you still have both of those streams. And again, that money is very specifically used for that. And to the extent that it's not, we bank that money. With regard to the franchise fees, that's just money that's coming into the village. So that's really more, Dale is not here, but I would assume that's like a general fund money that basically comes in. So
correct.
It drops. But the PEG is they're very specifically dedicated funds in terms of what we can and cannot do with that in terms of equipment. So, Deputy Mayor, there may well come a point that it will go low enough that happens. What I can say is that with Verizon still there, as well as with the money coming in from Cablevision, we would be in a position to, I think, certainly do that, because I don't think we've gone through the PEG funds like that in a year. So while it will be a drop, because if you figure you're dropping each year, you still have those funds coming in with regard to that. And again, on the franchise fee side, it'll be a diminishment in what goes into the general fund. And that again is both as to Verizon, because for both Verizon and Cablevision, it's the same thing, 5% of gross revenue. So subscribers basically drop, those fees drop, that number is going to drop no matter what. And Dale gave me the numbers. If you look over the years, you can see that those fees, there was, I think, one point in, let's say, 2019, and you basically see them just dropping down every single year.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think part of the challenge is, there's just as I mentioned before, with respect to, customer prioritization and viewership, because of the amount of competition, whether it's YouTube TV or all the different streaming services that, that don't have the same obligations under federal law that we and Verizon have. You are seeing a little bit of a change in kind of viewership perspective, but I do think that the cord cutting, and this is just my opinion, I think it's starting to flatten out a little bit. I think because of the price points that you're starting to see on the streaming side coming up, it's definitely having an impact on how people are, choosing to view their content globally. So I also think that in relation to answer your question in terms of the declining peg, I think you're also starting to see a shift in the cost for the types of equipment necessary to broadcast. And that coming down. I see, just to give you an example, Apple's out there, with their iPhone having commercials, with directors shooting movies. Who would have thought, we never would have thought 20 years ago that, you don't need a $50,000 camera to shoot, TV quality content. Now I think you do. So I think there's also that kind of synergy there between the two providers, as Stuart mentioned, plus the, kind of the reduction in cost for equipment, sophisticated equipment coming down the pike.
Thank you.
Just so you know, the combined franchise fees received in 2017 were $476,106.61. In 2024, it was $349,121.98. So
You told us, well, last time we did Verizon, 20% decrease year to year.
you're seeing, so you're seeing that, and that's just, keep going down. So that's where we are.
All righty.
Yeah.
So,
We seem to be outperforming Verizon on the cord cutting, surprisingly, which I think is to our benefit. And if you want to tell the Verizon
That's
customers of the
between
village
the
to come to.
titans of communication, not us. Are we all good? Board?
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I
Thank you,
hope
Frank. We'll
your-
be
I
in
hope
touch
your
to scheduling
child-
the public hearing.
I hope your
My
2-year-old
pleasure.
is better soon.
Yes, I just gave him Tylenol, so hopefully he's calming
Always a
down.
good thing.
And yes,
Thank you.
have a great evening, everybody.
right.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
Next.
Good night.
Okay, so next, we've been talking, about our event policy. Every year we try to make adjustments, make it better, improve it in the interest of having value-added events in the Village of Ossining, but also in the interest of making sure that we are having events that don't have any unintended consequences or negative impact on people who live here, because most of our events do take place in highly residential areas in the village. So with that, Jamie, can you put that presentation up, please? You can go to the next page. So as I mentioned, we introduced a special events policy. We did not have one prior to 2021, but we did introduce one that year. And as I said, we review it and try to improve it. These recommendations are made with the intent of, again, making sure that we mitigate unintended consequences and impact of events on village residents. We also want to have further, a more clarification for the event organizer, detailing their obligations that really require them to be involved from the setup of the event to the takedown and the cleanup. We have found that, when you're closing streets, when you have parades, when you have processions, this really requires a lot of coordination, particularly when you're on major roads, crossing Route 9, traffic concerns. So we have started working with groups, St. Anne's in particular, that does processions, to really make sure that we are not only able to conduct the procession, but we are doing so in a way that is the safest way possible and mitigating any risk to anybody in the procession, and also alleviating some of the traffic pileup concerns, particularly when crossing Route 9. Licensing agreements for fundraising events. So this is something that we may want to consider, like fundraising events really are events where people raising money for a different organization. It could be a nonprofit, it could be a bunch of different things, always great causes for sure. But, when you're doing it on village property, you're also now fundraising on taxpayer property, things that are open to the taxpayer. So we have to really consider that. We should have a licensing agreement in place for that. The licensing agreement is not an onerous agreement. It's something that we can draft, but we do need to make sure that we are acknowledging that it's different from a community-based event. And we do, I think it's always important to look at the fees, and what we charge for events and make sure that we're striking the right balance of, making, providing a good event, but also being respectful of the fact that this is, all done, on, in the taxpayer, on their property, in their parks, using their services. And we want to make sure that the value add is greater than any, negative consequences. So one of the things we noticed, that's becoming a little bit more problematic as we have more people living even on Main Street, our parks, unlike some of the parks in the town or other municipalities, tend to be located around residential areas. So when there's an event, we want to make sure that people know that the event is happening, and we do our best to promote it, get it out on Facebook, on our message board and the mayor's message, but we can't reach everybody. And when we are doing major construction, we have the developer mail to a radius around the construction site to let them know that what's happening. We have the addresses for our event, for the residences in the radius of our event sites, whether it's Market Square or Nelson Park or anywhere else in the village. We will gladly give those to the event organizer, but it would be incumbent on the event organizer to make sure that a notice is mailed to those people, letting them know that an event is happening, and that should be done no later than 30 days prior to the event, and the village would require proof that that actually was done. We also need to make sure that for every event, the event organizer must be present for the entire duration of the event, from setup to takedown and cleanup, and of course, comply with all village ordinances and permitting requirements. We do state that, but I feel like we can't restate that enough. Cleanup and litter is a common complaint after a lot of residents after an event. So we do recommend that that's done continuously during the event, that event organizers have volunteer and people who can, keep things neat, not only on the event site, but in the immediate area as well, so that, people won't, will appreciate those events and feel respected too when it's happening right in their neighborhood. And I think that's a really important thing, to be good neighbors. This is all about raising raising involvement, engagement in the community. If the people living around the event aren't happy about the event, then that probably doesn't bode as well for the event itself. Since these are mostly community-based events that are supposed to make the community happy. Event hours. So when we say, we talk about our event hours, and we typically, when we reference those, we're talking about the hours that the event is active. But we really need to make sure that that includes startup times no earlier than 8 a.m. And takedown times no later than 12 a.m. Again, sometimes, and we really do appreciate this, events use private carting services to get rid of refuse at the end of an event. In Market Square, they did it that, when events have been done in Market Square, in the parking lots, that was done that night because we had to park there the next day. It hasn't, we hadn't gotten a lot of noise complaints. However, when you move those events to other places that maybe are more residential, and there's not an immediate need to move things that quickly, if it can't be done before 12 a.m., we would say, let's do it the next morning, so that, again, carting company coming up at 1 or 2 in the morning to pick stuff up is kind of noisy.
I actually, when I first saw this, I thought 12 a.m. was actually late. Like, I would have gone with 11. Like, I feel you have a reason for 12 a.m. Does that feel like in a middle of
Some events
residential
do
area?
run till 11, so I don't know that the carting companies could get there. The other thing is you can make the carting companies, come earlier. So, again, these are recommendations, so we can change anything, but these were recommendations based on, what we know we're doing and, you know, what we'd like to see being done in the future. So we talked about parades and
I think
processions.
whoever's doing the slides might want to go to the next.
Oh, next slide. I'm sorry, Jamie. That was me.
Thank you.
So we talked about parades and processions and, you know, anything requiring street closures and or traffic management. These need to be approved and coordinated. There's a typo there. With Austin Police Department no later than 45 days in advance of the event. And this is really important. Some of these events take an enormous amount of time and effort from the police department. And this really goes beyond whether, you know, what fees you charge for the police. We have just so many police to be on site at any event. And if they're on site at an event and something happens somewhere else and we don't have backup because everybody's working that event, which has happened, then we're really in a dilemma here, and we'd like to avoid being in that dilemma. So we're looking at also maximum participation on these events, which some have gone up to 2,000 people as maximum participation would be 1,000 people. Wouldn't necessarily count every person, but we do have pretty good ability to get a general idea how many people are there. And I mentioned, the fundraising events and the license agreement. And also I think it's important that events aren't guaranteed. The village reserves the right to deny any event application. It would be unusual for us to do so without citing specific reasons and cause. But it, you know, based on past events, that event organizer did, how they were run could be a condition. There could be a lot of reasons why we might decide to deny an application, and we would convey that to the event organizer. However, the village also reserves the right to cancel any event due to any exigent circumstance, and that would be any sort of emergency. It could be a weather emergency. It could be any kind of emergency that would prevent police and other staff from being available to safely manage that event. Hopefully that won't ever happen. That should be a rare occurrence, but I think we should state that.
These are
Emergency.
amendments. So are we saying that these do not currently exist? Like we don't have with village reserves the right to deny any?
We
of-
do. I just think some things need to be maybe reinforced and
And
strengthened.
maybe some words. Okay, because I'm seeing the word amendments and I thought this was already in there.
Yeah, it's
So
some
you're
things are
just-
in. I think it's that
Okay.
some things seem to need to be more clearly
All right.
defined and you know,
Got it.
originally we were, you know, when we talked about this last year, it was people getting their applications in time, and we had to start reinforcing that as criteria. That has gotten a lot better. But now, you know, just other things too, making sure that it is a huge responsibility to have an event in a community, and that responsibility has to be borne by the organizers to make sure that that event is not, again, having any, as wonderful as that event may be, and usually the events are very wonderful, that there's not unintended consequences. So when we're to, you know, I think that we need to do a little bit more work here based on some recent information that we just got. When we did our policy, we looked at cities because that's where a lot of cities are doing bigger events. And if you look at Peekskill, which would be the most analogous in terms of size and demographics, Peekskill's event policy is very thorough, and it's also very expensive compared to ours. And hourly rates are charged for staff based on salary, which is something that we are not doing at this point. We did look at villages too. So villages changes a little. Villages, a lot of the villages I've looked at don't actually even have event policies. If event comes up, the manager and the board negotiates either a partnership deal or some sort of fee based on that event, which is how we did it prior to 2021. Most of them don't necessarily charge event fees or have event fees in their schedule, in their fee schedules, but they do tend to charge for staff at a base salary hourly rate for staff. However, this has recently been called into question We had gotten some information from the New York Conference of Mayors. I think it's something that we have to look at more closely because although there may be a there is a position that charging for staff time, and this has to do with retirement benefits and overtime and things at the state level. It's something we really have to understand more fully because there's also at the same time a gift of public service. So if you're not charging directly for staff, which is something that virtually every municipality in the state of New York currently does, then we have to look at this differently if this really is something the state's going forward with this position and how we look at how we price our events, which means that the base rate would probably have to increase somewhat significantly to offset that expense. You would still need to offset that expense, in my opinion. Currently we're charging a base rate for staff. So events requiring more than 4 additional police officers, $400 for the event and $800 for 5 to 10 additional police officers. And for non-police staff, parks typically and public works, 300 for up to 4 additional non-police staff or 800 for 5 to 10 additional non-police staff. When we say additional, that means people who wouldn't have been scheduled that day. People are coming in on overtime or being scheduled extra shifts because there's additional requirements. But that is something we just found out about. So we will be doing a little bit more due diligence on that. And in advance of the budget meetings, we'll have recommendations for the fee schedule. And again, the real intent here is to really make sure that we've covered all the bases in addition to the fees, but really more, I think most importantly, make sure that our events are creating as much of an all boats rise scenario for everybody. I can't think of a bad event that we've had or an event that's not for a good cause, but I can think of times where people feel that I didn't know this was happening outside of my house. I can't leave my house, or, wow, it was a great event, but there's a horrible mess, or, wow, I wish I knew this was starting at 6 o'clock in the morning. We don't allow for construction to start that early. Why are we allowing for an event to start up? So those are the type of things. And again, I don't think anybody's doing anything deliberately, but there are unintended consequences when you bring upwards of 500 people and more into a community to gather for an afternoon or an evening.
Okay. All right, I just want to go, can we put the deck back up, please? Can you go towards the beginning? The one where the 500 square feet, there it is. So the fluorescent lights are like bothering me here. So Karen, just what we learned from cannabis after having an hour-long discussion about square footage and what qualifies as a distance from point A to point B. Can we just have you guys revisit this 500 square foot radius and all of that? Because people have different, like wherever they are, let's say it's a big park and they're in part of the park. Remember with the cannabis, it was like from the property line, then it became from the front door. I'm just suggesting, having learned from that experience, that we don't want to be in that conversation. So just decide how the measuring goes and what happens.
We looked at, I'm sorry, Jesse. We looked at what we do for construction when people are doing construction in a neighborhood. So we'll look, we can clarify that. It would be from the boundary of the event.
Right, and where
Base.
is the piece that we've discussed about, I actually think, I understand what you're saying with 12 AM. Maybe everybody else is okay. That still seems late to me, but I'll let you guys rethink. For my 2 cents worth, I'll let others have input, but the loading and unloading zones. I mean, this thing of
So,
stopping in the middle of a street like on Eastern, or stopping by Vets in that one-way street and blocking, I mean, you can't get through there. people can't get to their homes because there's like I guess it's the Vets Park and the other one where it's like one-way streets oftentimes near parks. And so once you are unloading,
Right.
people literally cannot get to in and out of their homes for X amount of.
So, this is something that, and I apologize, that should have been in here. The loading and unloading we can add as well. This is similar to, what we do when we're issuing building permits. And it does happen when people are doing construction that they block streets. That's a complaint I get. So it's a similar type of
Right.
thing. Typically based on our policies, based on our code, you can't be blocking for more than a brief 15 minutes. So that's not always the case. Everything always takes a little longer, loading and unloading. I think that we can clarify that there has to be accommodations for loading and unloading that don't block the street. And that would be dependent on the particular event space.
So let me just, in the real world, when there's a delivery for loading and unloading, it's a truck or two, they load or unload. When you're running an event and there are 38 tents and 38 vendors, every one of them pulls up a car. So you could have blockage for 45 minutes to an hour, not the same person, right? I pull up with my SUV and then I take the tent stuff out and all that. And that's 15 to 20 minutes. Then the next truck comes in, then the pickup truck comes in with the hatch or whatever they've got. So when you're talking about commercial, it's
Oh.
usually a truck. Here it could be 30 trucks, 40 trucks, 20 trucks. One after,
we can,
so the event organizer is our contact person, but they would tell you, well, I got, then I got the pizza truck that, needs space. And that I think is the problem and then the reverse happens at the end of the event.
So we can accommodate for some of those things to happen on site, or that there's a dedicated area somehow that doesn't create the blockages. That is, I think it is specific to the event site, because some sites you have the ability to have that done on site without blocking the street. Some sites, many events that we do close streets. I think that some events that happen, again, the issues that we have where it's the most problematic are in the densest parts of the village. So when there's a difference in the how we do events best, if they're at Market Square they're at the waterfront, or if they're in Nelson Park, or if they're in different areas. And the reason for that is every area is sort of surrounded by different things and has,
So that's a difference in this village, not in others. Many of our parks that we're now using are in the middle, not just of residential area, densely populated residential areas, the ones that have been used. So just food for thought. And I sort of don't love the comment on one of the slides, how villages don't have this or that. The reality is we're one of the largest villages in Westchester County. And I think you pointed out to then compare really more to Peekskill, a city, but nevertheless, it's the same size. The other piece is many of them don't have, because many of them don't allow events anymore. They don't have a lot of fees because they don't allow events in their communities anymore. So that's why they don't have a schedule. And if they do, they make an exception here or there. But they don't have that many events to begin with. Many of the villages, unlike the cities, no longer allow events in their downtowns. And it doesn't matter if they're affluent. I mean, many of the villages here have, an average of 5,000 people. It's a whole different ballgame. And so they don't have schedules because they don't allow them anymore. And that wasn't brought up here in the event policy, that in fact, that I think my experience is that most of our people actually like events. Many of the people that come to events are not our people, right? They're people. They're people from Westchester. I mean, in the form of esoteric understanding, everybody from the world is our people on one hand. But our residents, while loving events, they aren't always the majority attendees at these events. They come from other municipalities that don't allow events. So I think that also has to be, because all these pages and documents tell a story. I think that actually is a more realistic. We actually like events. The problem is that we, like whenever I moved in, I'm sure even when you moved in, there weren't that many people living downtown. There weren't that many people living around the parks. There weren't that many people living in Ossining. There's just more people now living here. So it's densely populated. But I think everything else, I think you guys. I know it's a big headache, actually.
No,
I want to share with the board that every time I go to NICOM and mention our event policy, everybody asks me to send them a copy because they all want copies. Look, once you go up northern and western New York, you know, pick a field, stick some tents in it, everybody's happy. There's no issues, except for sanitation issues that do occur on the weekends. That's an expense for all the villages. So thanks. I mean, this is great. I'm going to let everybody else have their input. We all live near parks. We all live here. We all know what's going on here. So, but I think this is a great effort and the prices, I'm not hearing an ask. Are you asking us to approve prices? I'm not sure what the ask is here.
just based on what we learned, because this literally came in this week, we had sort of a recommendation, we're backing away because we want to find out more about what the implications are, since this is a pervasive way that municipalities charge for things. You know, it's the way they work with utility companies. It's like, it's a little strange to me that this is coming up. I think that some of the cases that, and I sent the boards the information I got from NACON, I mean, some of them were quite old. The issue was, I think they were recently challenged, and the challenge was, you know, the state agreed with the, you know, that you can't charge for these things. The challenge
Well,
is
you
right
can't
now.
charge for the police is what I think the prices are.
But the implication would be for any charging hourly rates for staff. We asked about what the implications are. I think it would be safe to say that any of that could be challenged, and that now there's a precedent that challenge would not, you wouldn't be able to,
Right.
win
So
that
it's like all
challenge.
over the fees.
So, you know, again, I think that your point about village and cities is well placed. So in cities, you have large scale event organizers that tend to come in and do things because it's a city, so you can get tons of people there. It makes sense. You know, you're going to run an event on a waterfront where you have 50,000 people as opposed to a waterfront where you have 5 if you're a large scale event producer. And that's how the cities basically, you know, and that's true to a certain extent in Peekskill, where the vast majority of their events are on their waterfront. I think, and they have quite a large waterfront to have events, which is not always typical. The smaller communities, though, again, they do range in size. I did look at, you know, I talked to my counterparts in Port Chester and Tarrytown does a lot of, you know, in partnership events. When they do rent their waterfront, it's not inexpensive, but they don't have a set fee for that. You know, they do it sort of based on the scope of the nature of the event, and that's similar for what Port Chester does too.
All right, turning it over to, I think we went from here. Let's go to this side. Anybody have comments or questions or additives? So are these guidelines also applied to events on private property?
So events on private property would have to comply with village ordinances for noise, for different things. And I think that, you know, the blocking of the streets are, you know, would be, you know, it is an issue. Parking issues, blocking of streets, unloading and unloading for places, you know, that have private events in residential areas. I think that was one of the issues that was brought up about, you know, St. Anne's because of the narrow streets that you have surrounding that area. But I think that would be something, I know St. Anne's is looking to, you know, work with people who've raised issues within the neighborhood and try to address some of those things. So I'd be hopeful that they could come to, you know, come to a conclusion on that. You know, our ability to tell people what they can do on their own property is a little different, obviously, than what we would do on public property and things like that. So we wouldn't charge permit fees for an event that's not happening on our own property because we, you know, it's not our property. But you know, if they require a tent that of a certain size, that requires a building permit, things like that. And they, you know, and all of our other codes and ordinances, anybody would have to follow regardless of where the event is.
So for example, would
St. Anne's have to send a letter to the 500, within 500 feet? No, because they're not they're not private.
I would say that for St. Anne's, we do ask private developers developing on private property to let the people know, and I think it would be a very good idea for, this is a way that St. Anne's can let people know that things are happening, or anybody else. I think that that could apply to, I don't see why that couldn't apply to people doing events on private property, because that's what we require of developers developing. I'm not sure if there's, so we could require the notice for events on private property. Or, people doing events to let people know. I think what we can't do is that's for stationary events. I think for processions and stuff, we can put out notice, we're not gonna necessarily be able, if we were gonna notice the Memorial Day parade, I don't know that we can effectively do that, or the Fireman's Parade, or
Yeah.
a procession that goes all through the heart of town, because that's a little bit more challenging to do in terms of addresses and that, along the route, that might be a bit onerous, but I think for, events that are happening on site, it's not a bad idea to try to let people know in advance.
Well, some things like the festival are everybody knows when that happens.
Yeah, I would think the neighbors by now know when that's happening.
Yeah, we
yes.
pretty much, no, it's just the ones that pop up out of nowhere.
Again, and what constitutes an event? So if you
Yeah.
have a soccer game, that really doesn't, to me, constitute an event. But an event would be, we might have to, we do detail what an event is in our policy. So it would pertain to those things that we designate and have identified by definition as an event in our policy. It wouldn't necessarily be everything that's happening, though.
Right.
Thank you, Karen. I think this is great. I don't have any specific questions that haven't already been asked, but appreciate all this and excited to hear more about the numbers once we get more information.
Anybody else?
Thanks. Appreciate it. I remember building the policy the first time around. And then that's good to come back and see some adjustments. So I think it's good. It evolves over time. Couple of things for me. One, there was a point in the policy where you mentioned maximum participation of 1,000 people on page 4. Is that just for parades and processions, or is that for all events?
It's something we should probably think about. And this did come up when we were doing the Haunted Kill, which was a village-sponsored event. We limited the ticket sales to 500 people a night, and we probably went a little bit over that. But based on our ability to run an event, and again, it's a little bit dependent, you can have more people in some places than you can in others. But at a certain point, we have to look at what we're doing with the event, and I think there has to be some understanding of our physical capacity, separate from the cost, our physical capacity based on our staff capacity to manage events of a certain size and scale. So that was specific to processions and parades.
Okay.
However, we might want to start thinking of on a site-by-site basis, what we want to do. We have events, you have thousands of people come to the fireworks, again, municipally sponsored events. You've had thousands of people come to what we used to do on Main Street, closing the streets. Those events are all hands on deck. We have almost every single person in the police department and in sanitation, parks, like that requires a village to do those things at that scale. Certainly, your average event when you're doing, whether it's the Portuguese festival or the Hispanic festival, like you're talking about, those are in the 500 people range, and that seems to be a workable size. But when you start getting to bigger events, I think we do have to sort of think those through. And right now, we haven't, aside from events that we are actually sponsoring, we don't have events that large.
Okay, fair enough. All right. But I do think like if you're going to start putting more codification around the numbers like that, I think it needs to be either specific or a little fungible, right? It got to go one way or the other because, you know, a point in time number of 1,000 is very different from, you know, something that goes on over 6 hours where you ultimately get 1,000 people walking through, but it might be, you know,
500 at a time. which
not
is-
not even, right?
yeah.
I just indexed to um baseball, the end of the end of the year celebration where you process through every league and every team over the course of 7 hours, if you have the families plus the kids plus the brothers and sisters and both parents, you know, you've got 400 kids plus 2 parents each. That's, plus a couple of brothers and sisters, you're over 1,000. So over the course of a day though.
Right.
Right.
Which is
So
different than having 1,000 more.
exactly. So
Yes.
that's where I just suggest that you just refine that a little bit from a thinking perspective, just from that. And then similarly along the size, I think the notification clause has to be a little specific too, right? Because technically, I think the way that the Parks and Recreation event is classified, it's anything. You know, anything requiring a reservation through the Parks and Rec system is technically considered an event. Most of them are are considered class 1. So like every soccer game at Nelson Park can't be giving a notification.
No,
Right,
we
so-
can identify that for the large. like,
Exactly.
specific
So,
little parts of
like,
this.
tier 3 or tier 4 events, that kind of a thing, it makes sense, right? So I
And
think it just needs.
So, we have to think, like, if we do that, then one could argue that we need to do that for our village events too. Which is doable, but it's another layer of stuff that we have to do.
That's what I'm saying. Just
Yeah.
like, I think that one needs to be thought through a little bit more. The. See what are the other pieces. I'm curious, Stuart, is the rationale for requiring a quote license agreement for a fundraising activity. I just what
We require a license agreement now as part of it because technically they're using village property. So if you're using village property, you always want a license agreement.
okay.
So we require it even now, it's in the code. For
Right.
a
It
special
just
event.
it hasn't really made itself into the, and we also sort of, sometimes whether it's fundraising or not, it's not always 100%.
Not always clear, but
Clear, so
like,
yeah,
I'm
so if
not,
you want to
I'm
just
not,
codify it.
I'm not arguing that
Yeah.
it shouldn't be in there, but just let's, for the public, we should be clear on the why
Yep,
we're putting that in there. And then the last thing is, and this is an unintended consequence of putting this on the agenda, was me poking around the process as if I actually wanted to get a policy permit. I would suggest you kind of take a look at the process and try to simplify it online a little bit, right? Like there are a bunch of places where, get this as required, get this as required, get this as required. I think it'd be easier
to have everything
to have
all
it
in one.
in a given location, be like a series of questions. Are you going to do this?
Yep.
Then you need this. Are
Yep.
you going to do this? Do you need
We
that?
can do
Right? And then there actually isn't a place for a tent permit on the building department website. It doesn't say tent permit anywhere.
Should. Yeah, I'll double check.
I couldn't find it.
We'll make sure, I know that there is one, so I'll make sure that we have it.
I stopped after 5 minutes, but that's
yeah.
long enough.
But I know that there is a tent permit, so I'll make sure that there's ways, I think, that we can make it easier.
Just make it easy.
Yeah.
The message is, let's take a look at the process. Let's figure out how to make it simpler
Yeah.
for people who want to do something. If,
I
from that
think that's a very good idea. Thank you.
Just, I agree with the mayor. I think 12 o'clock is late. That's something we should look into, maybe ending the event by 10 and be done by 11, whatever. We'll walk through that. I don't know.
Okay.
But I still think 12 o'clock
We
is
have to
late.
look- I think it was, like I said, There's a reason. I think there's a couple of big events that end at 10 or something.
Well,
Sunset in the summer is like at 9 and they do fireworks or something.
most,
I don't remember the exact.
most of our events usually end earlier, the ones that are on village property. I believe that the Portuguese fair goes to
11.
10 or 11.
Goes to 11,
11, so that would be
but
one.
they're a machine. They're,
Well, that they are a machine, and I think part of the issue was that when they were a machine on downtown and they did a great job.
Yeah.
The dumpster did come in, they did have a private pickup. When that event was moved to a more residential area this year, they did the same thing, which they do a marvelous job cleaning up. However, in that particular location, the noise from the pickup was more of an issue.
right.
That's where we got the 12
Yeah.
12 PM. And look, that it can be easily fixed if, we'll have to talk to the event organizers, but down on Main Street, they have no choice. They got to pick up
Right.
that night because we got to park the next day. It could be if they're on a different location where somebody doesn't have to park, that pickup could be done in the morning, the day after. I don't want to fault them for doing that because they've always done such an amazing job cleaning up.
Right.
And this was just,
Right.
again, clearly an unintended consequence of trying to do the right thing.
Okay, and the only other thing I had was, which is something I guess it'll be discussed, is the fees for staff time, police time. You know,
I want to get
it's
more,
something that's
I'm
gotta
going
be
to have a
looked at.
conversation with the Managers Association and with NICOM because it doesn't make, this is not making sense to
No.
me.
That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, so the next step for this, we don't really have an ask. I mean, this was really to open the discussion, so the feedback is good. What will come back is a draft with the changes to the policy based on this. And then also in anticipation of budget season, we'll have recommendations. Bill is on there too, so he obviously worked with me on this and we'll have recommendations for the fee schedule. But this is really helpful feedback, so thank you all very much.
Okay.
All right, next, up, we have, next up is like the Stuart Kahan show. He's got 4 items up. So we're gonna just run through them and then I'll let him just present, but we have a revision to chapter 92, the Building Construction and Fire Prevention Code Administration. Revision to chapter 229, Streets and Sidewalks. Revision to chapter 247, towing, and a continued discussion on the loan agreement to Sing Sing Prison for the things that we are loaning them. So,
Great.
all right, which I believe is
Stuart.
the chair. Okay.
Welcome back,
Thanks.
Stuart.
Thank you. Let's get started here.
Yep.
On chapter 92, I've discussed these revisions with the building inspector. First, relating to building permits. In terms of time limits for building permits, currently the code is that a permit will become invalid if you have not started the work within 6 months. What we've proposed to change and what I've seen in other municipalities is you have both commenced and you have a diligently pursued section to that as well. So it won't be enough that someone comes in and basically takes a shovel of dirt and says, I've started my job. Because we've had that happen. In addition, the permit will become invalid if the work is suspended or abandoned for a period of 6 months after you commence the work. We've had that happen as well, where basically the job sits after they start. But their argument is, well, I still have a permit. We would like to be able to basically find those permits to be invalid at that point. Additionally, the building inspector will be given the discretion to extend a permit if he believes it necessary for periods of up to 90 days. Currently, the code does not say for how long the building inspector can do that, but here it would just be for periods of 90 days. But importantly, what this section also provides is that there are conditions to get an extension, and 2 new conditions have been put in. The first is that you've paid your taxes, your water bills, your sewer rents, that's all taken care of. And the second is that you cannot get you cannot renew the permit where there are existing violations on the property, be it of the Uniform Code, the State Energy Code, the Village Code. You can't do it. The exception is if the permit is to cure an already existing violation, we will then give you the permit for that. The issue with the taxes and water bills is important because this has come up recently with a couple of properties where you are a tenant and you're hoping to develop, or you're a contract vendee and you're hoping to develop property, and you go through the whole process, and then you suddenly find out, oh, by the way, the owner owes taxes. Well, unfortunately for you, if you didn't check that out in advance, it's on you. It's not the village, because we do want to get all those taxes paid. We've made a similar change, or propose a similar change, with regard to the certificate of occupancy. So again, it could happen that you got your building permit, you built everything, but that suddenly some taxes pop up or some violations pop up. The current code was a little bit unclear as to what would happen if you have a large piece of property and you're building in one location, but there's a violation elsewhere. My reading of the code is that if you had a violation elsewhere, but your CO was being issued for this building, you could still get that CO. The proposed change changes that and basically says any violation on the property, you don't get your CO. Every violation essentially has to get cleared. As it says, it would say that if there's any pending violations, orders to remedy, appearance tickets, notices to repair, restraining orders, preliminary injunctions, anything along those lines, you don't get your CO until all of that is cleared. And that, in addition, it already says it in the code, your taxes, your water charges, your fines, that all has to get paid. What we have often had circumstances where people come in and say, well, give me my CO, and then they suddenly find out, you know, you owe taxes for this, or you owe something for that. This would make it very clear. We will make it clear during the building permit and CO process to an applicant that this has to be taken care of. It is also being made clear during the planning process, because in many of the projects we have, the applicant is in fact not the owner. It is someone who has permission from the owner to make the application. So we make it clear now at the planning process that we will take your application. We're not stopping taking a planning application, but we do make it clear that once you get past, let's say, the planning board, you're not getting your building permit until your taxes are paid. And if that means that you have to go against your property owner to deal with him, so be it. We're not going to issue that. We're not going to allow the taxes to be unpaid, allow violations to stand. So that's the proposed changes with regard to Chapter 92. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Everybody's good? You guys are good? Great, I have questions. So, three things.
Sure.
The 60-day, so give me the scenario of the maximum. I wait for day 59 to put a shovel in the ground and do whatever.
Right.
So from
It's
day,
8 months.
I'm sorry, so I wait for 5 months and, you know,
Right.
and 29 days to do that. And then what happens?
Well, what have you done? If all you've done is one thing and you're not then diligently pursuing it,
Right. So diligently
can-
pursuing, is there some sort of a definition around what diligently pursuing
No.
is, or is that?
diligently pursuing is exactly what it sounds like, that you've basically been doing more than just making a hole in the ground. You've
Okay.
actually been
I'm
proceeding with your
seeing
work.
some gray area. Okay, we'll see how that works. So I had a question about that. The other question is the 90-day that
the
that
building permit.
Right, the building, it's one time 90-day or?
No, it can be additional periods. There's no limit on the number of periods that he can give if he thinks it's necessary. He also has the discretion to say no.
Well, we understand that. Everybody got that? You're all okay with that? I have mixed feelings, but I don't need to care so much if everybody else feels that. So it could be 90 days, another 90 days, another,
be.
but Joe generally, or most of the guys don't, up to,
Up to 90 days.
yeah. But he could do multiple, no, and he generally doesn't give more days because the whole point here is to actually get something done, not the other way around. All right, so we'll see how that works. So here's my question. It's a more existential question. So we have owners and we have applicants. They are not always the same, as you pointed out. That's why I wrote the note down. The applicant may or may not know about taxes, about outstanding anything. The owner should know. My problem is, and my challenge in this community is that we have a number of owners that own multiple properties. When there's an outstanding tax, outstanding fill in the blank, is it only to that property or is it to all
Only
properties?
the property.
Only, can
So
we
in other
make
words,
it
if
tied
we-
to more than one property?
No, well, generally, most of those owners you're talking about owned in different LLCs.
So it's all under different corporate.
It would be different
entities.
corporations, so this is property specific. So
Okay.
if property A owes taxes, or property B and A have the same owner, but B owes taxes, but the work's on A,
Right,
then A can go forward. It's property specific.
and
So,
that's your preference. You feel that's the.
well, I
right
think that's
preference.
also the whole idea of having a limited liability corporation, is that you basically.
You limit your liability.
Because what you're doing is you're trying to do something like piercing what they call the corporate veil.
Right.
You wouldn't be able to do it.
Okay.
Basically, that's why they set them up that way.
Okay, and so the question I have is now about the human part, the communication piece. Right, so some people literally start this stuff. Whatever happens, they don't remember that they have an outstanding fill in the blank. Are we gonna start doing better communications to these folks that they better have checked to see that they don't have any outstanding liens and titles and all the other stuff? that
Well,
go-
two things.
Or
One,
taxes or whatever.
when they apply for the permit, Joan Knapp in the building department will tell them, you have X, Y, Z. You have these things outstanding, and they need to be taken care of. As I mentioned, if they need to go through the planning board process, which many of these do, at that stage, these folks will be told this has to be done. We will be adding to the resolutions for the planning board and zoning board where applicable, a specific condition that you will not get your building permit until all this is taken care of. All the and let's assume it's an applicant. The applicant wants to know if there are taxes owed. All he has to do is call Dale or call Holly. That's all they have to do. It's not secret. They
It's
can
not
call
brain
up
surgery.
and they'll have that. If they want to know if there's outstanding violations, they can serve a FOIL request, which is what we get all the time, and that'll be responded to very, very quickly, and they'll know what's outstanding on the building.
So my question's a little different, which is where in this process, because we just had a deck about process. Who's not gonna wait till they look it up, even though it's very easy? Who's gonna sit there and go, here's the list, and you better make sure that all this stuff, that you're good on all this stuff? Is somebody gonna say that?
It's
to
the
the
planning process, they're gonna be told it generally either at a pre-app meeting, they will definitely be told it at the planning board,
Okay.
because it becomes a condition of it will
Okay.
become a
So
condition.
that's what I want to hear, that somebody will proactively say,
Mhm.
here's the list of 6, better check them off and, dot the i's and cross the t's. Please don't tell me you didn't know. It's the communication piece that I'm interested in this part of my question.
Understood.
Yeah. Did you have
Just
a
to
question?
follow up on that, I think totally get the planning board, totally get from that perspective, I think that the potential gap is exactly what we just had, which is where, somebody leases a property and they get the permission to go make some changes. And it doesn't necessarily get to the planning board level where basically it's just the building permit. And so that might slip through, the notification might slip through the cracks there.
I understand, and the building department will deal with it from a communication standpoint. But I also have to say this, there is a sense of personal responsibility by the person getting the
Mhm.
permit. Very simply, check if there are taxes that are owed. We will tell you that that's something you have to check.
Okay.
We will
Okay,
tell
Stuart,
you.
nobody's actually arguing that. The sense of I don't know, we've all sat in the seats long enough, including Pat, to know enough of this nonsense. That said, it doesn't hurt that we also improve communication so that nothing can fall through the crack. You're buying a house, you're supposed to look at rules, you're supposed to know what you're doing and all that, and many people don't because they don't bother looking at any of this stuff. We get that, we see that all the time, but just in speaking about improving communication, it would be lovely if, yes, it's on you, but I'm gonna let you know anyway, so that we're both very clear.
Well,
This is the list, go make sure you got
When
nothing
they,
outstanding.
I mean, we can add it there, but also when they apply for the permit, they will be told at that stage,
That's.
this is
what we're-
open.
so
That's,
we're on the same
thank
page.
you. Okay,
Yeah,
that's it.
just trying to make sure people, it's helpful, that's all.
Yep.
Because even one person a year out of hundreds is still one person, that one person. It's painful. I saw you moving, so I don't know. Okay, we're good.
Okay,
Next,
thank you. Next relates
get up and
to,
walk.
streets and sidewalks.
yeah.
The first is essentially a technical change based upon a Court of Appeals decision recently and some advice from the folks up at NICOM. And that deals with prior notices of defect. Generally, be able to sue a municipality for, let's say, a sidewalk defect, a road defect, or something like that, you have to have what's called prior notice. Recently, the Court of Appeals in a decision involving the city of Albany noted that it could well be that providing such notice via email, social media, or something like that would be okay. NICOM is of the view, and I don't disagree with them, that that could create a big problem. Because so the better thing to do, and what we have proposed here, is that if you're going to make if you're going to argue, say that there was a defect somewhere, it has to be written notice delivered to the clerk. Can't be someone writes it on the village's social media page. They can't do it in a Twitter
We
account.
can't write on the village social media page
Well,
anyway.
on any-
But any social,
any
any of the
such-
hundreds of platforms that
Right.
I don't. look
So
at.
this would basically require that it has to be in writing, provided in that particular way, and that it can't be by email, website, service, or anything. That does not mean that you cannot make a complaint by email. Anonymous complaints are made to the building department all the time, and that's fine. But it's not the same as saying the sidewalk is problematic. The best example of this is what's called the Big Apple Pothole Corporation, which basically there is someone who went out and basically they map every single location, but they provide written notice to the city. This would be the same thing. This has now been adopted in a number of municipalities throughout the state to make it clear that if you're going to argue prior notice, you got to have prior notice that's actually physically been given to the clerk. The clerk then dockets it. We keep it. Usually I can just, so the board is aware, if we get notice of a defect, something like that, one of the first things that the clerk does is she sends it to DPW so that they are aware that something's wrong. And generally DPW will go out and repair it. But the reason that this becomes important is if you don't repair it, you have prior notice, someone falls, you could be liable.
So you're saying for the clerk, one cannot email to the clerk?
You couldn't email the prior notice of a
see.
defect to the clerk. That is correct. You'd have to go in, give it to them, but you can't, it wouldn't be email, website, service, or anything like that. It has to be physically given to the clerk of the notice of the defect. And if someone emails it into the clerk can easily respond, please come into the office and just, give it to us. Again, I point out as a litigator, what in many ways protects villages from getting sued for every single type of claim. So you have to put rules in as to how you get prior notice. And this would be a rule which would be simple. They have to come in and have to physically give it to you. It's not enough to do it because let's say they do it by email and the email gets lost, which happens, or the email gets misdirected, which happens, or the email gets sent to an email address of someone who no longer works here, which is exactly what happened in the case of Albany, but they still said it was noticed because someone in the vast system could have gotten that. Same kind of
So
situation.
when they bring it in that way, there's somebody at the clerk's office currently employed there who clocks it in
Yes.
actually.
They do, and I get a copy. And if generally it's a road situation, DPW gets a copy. So they know about it right away. So that can get repaired as quickly as it can.
All right. Anybody have issues, problems? I guess we can revisit, because to me, email would work just as well. But we can revisit. All right, let's stay
The-
with this now, given that sort of,
Okay.
I get the protection of the corporation of the village. I get that. Okay.
The second change proposed in this chapter deals with the issue that came up, if you folks will recall, on Cedar Lane Place with regard to the abutting sidewalks and the snow and
Right,
and all
yeah,
that.
that's right.
So
Yeah, yeah.
there are two changes that are proposed here. One, Piper Rock, I forget, but yeah, all those different properties there.
There's my man, knows
The-
every corner,
the-
every corner.
Currently, the property owner, the abutting property owner, according to our charter, is responsible to maintain the sidewalk. The abutting property owner, as I said. This revision makes two changes. One, it defines abutting, which is in line with a court case, that it is any property, it includes the property that is in close proximity to an improved sidewalk, although separated from the sidewalk by a municipal right-of-way. Piping Rock is the prime example, because the area that separates the property from the sidewalk happens to be state-owned property as part of Route 9. But this would now make it very clear they would
Okay.
be abutting property owners.
All right.
So the other change would be to make that property owner not only responsible to maintain, but also be the primarily liable person if someone falls. Currently, it's the village that's the responsible or the liable party. They are the shifting of this liability to the property owner. It's done in Peekskill, it's done in Beacon, it's done in Long Beach, it's done in other municipalities as well. Again, the way this is worded, it doesn't say that they are exclusively responsible, but it does say that they are a liable party in the case. So that if they have not maintained the property, if they have not taken care of the property, that's an issue. I know that sometimes there are questions with regard to what do you do if a tree basically comes up and basically uproots the sidewalk? The answer is this: if the tree is on the private property, then that private property owner would be responsible under any circumstance. If the tree is in the right of way, being villages, then the village would also bear responsibility. But again, the maintenance of the sidewalk is already the responsibility of the property owner. This would simply mean that there would also be another entity that would be potentially liable through their homeowner's insurance or things like that. So it just basically adds another layer for the village in terms of who is potentially liable. This would deal with snow and ice. This would deal with any such dangerous condition that might be there. So it's not just a snow and ice type situation, although that is the primary time when we see this. But we have enough issues with sidewalks that we thought it'd be important to make this change. But again, I defer to the board on that.
I just have one question.
Sure.
So they're responsible for maintaining it. Now, something happens, sidewalk cracks or something, someone slips and falls. We still should have been noticed to the clerk if this was seen, correct?
That's 100% correct, because the prior notice does apply to the sidewalk as
Okay.
well, right?
Thank you.
It does.
Right, and then it would have been fixed.
Stuart, so in the example that you gave of the tree being on the village side, so generally what's the remedy there? Because if you repair the sidewalk, the roots ultimately are going to be doing the same thing over time.
Well, that would be a matter of having a discussion with the village arborist. It may require trimming back, cutting back the tree in its entirety, if in fact it's basically causing the entire sidewalk to erupt. I wouldn't know in terms of what the answer is. Depending on the size of the tree, it could be a very expensive proposition. And if it's on the homeowner's side, it's going to be a particularly expensive proposition as to what to do. And we have many sidewalks in the village where we have essentially erupting as a result of tree roots. I do know that we go around regularly to check sidewalks, and I know that this board has seen in the past, we come up with basically assessments for sidewalks. Most folks, when asked, folks are basically given the choice: you can repair it to our specs, or we'll repair it. 95% we'll let the village repair it, and then the village will do it. In the case of a tree or something like that, simply repairing it is not going to do it because it's just going to come right back. So at that point, then the question has to be, what do you do about it? And the other thing I would also say is we've had circumstances where property owners have been issued orders to remedy to fix their sidewalks. Generally, if they're already working with DPW, we take those orders to remedy and we essentially deep six them until it gets fixed, because it may take a while for DPW to get to that location. But once the property owner's already made arrangements to get it fixed, we don't really think the owner should be there. Now that's curing a violation. That's different than from someone falling. So, and in that case, we both know that there's an issue. So we would all be responsible.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, next.
Last is towing. When the village adopted the changes to the towing back in, I think, 2021, we created 2 rotational lists. We had a heavy duty list and we had a light duty list. Heavy duty is basically 10,000 and up, light duty 10,000 below. At that time, and under the code currently, all the tow operators had to have facilities in the village of Ossining. The last tow company in Ossining that had a heavy duty tow sold that truck. Don't have any more. So what we are proposing is that with regard to heavy duty tows, as long as they can respond within 30 minutes, they can be on a rotation list. We have at least one company that has already done that. And we are using that company now because there is a provision in the code that basically allows the chief or his designee to choose someone else in the event we don't have anyone else. But we'd actually like to put someone on that list. This doesn't mean that if an Ossining company comes in and basically says, we'd like to be on the heavy duty rotation list, that we wouldn't put them on if they qualify. We would be happy to do that. We just don't have anybody at this time. And it sort of creates that situation.
Just so we all remember, this is not about private towing. This is about,
This towing requested by.
has nothing to do with private towing.
Correct,
Right.
nothing. The other thing is, under the current code, the tow facility must meet all village zoning requirements and all village laws. If it is an out of jurisdiction tow operator, they must demonstrate that they meet that jurisdiction's requirements for their particular facility, wherever it is. We also are proposing we had to change the fingerprint requirements slightly to meet the request of the Division of Criminal Justice Services. That's important because it is DCJS that actually processes the fingerprints. So we wanted to be consistent with that. There's also been a change with regard to insurance. We have reduced the insurance requirements to be more consistent with what are actually seen in other municipalities. Just so you know, for tow trucks, generally the insurance required, I believe, is 100, 300, which is that's per accident and total, and 25,000 for property damage. We thought that was low. Most municipalities also think that's low, but ours was basically too high. We were requiring umbrella and excess insurance. I think there was one other municipality that did that. We were requiring $1 million garage keeper, which is basically how you maintain your facility. What we put in is what I've seen in other municipalities is that it's got to be now minimum limits sufficient to cover fire, theft, and property damage. So in most places that comes to generally about $75,000, something like that, but it wouldn't be the $1 million, which when we met with the tow operators a while back was one of the issues
Yeah, that was their
that they
big
had.
complaint.
So we want to basically deal with that. And then there are a few just technical changes with regard to the appeal process, making it clear when the appeal process would take place and how it would work. There's also a provision that's been added in that the chief of police may recommend changes to the fees should the chief become aware of material changes to prevailing fees for towing and storage. One of the things that the clerk and I will probably come before this board at a later date dealing with fees is dealing specifically with the storage fee. Currently, the village storage fee is $30 a day. That is among, if not the lowest around anywhere. Most municipalities are 50, 75. The state is 75. So we would be asking, and this is actually something that the operators have been asked, to increase the storage fee. And so again, we'll come before the board because that's really a fee issue. That's not a code issue. But again, that's something that we've heard from the various operators about. So that's the proposed changes to the tow
Any
ordinance.
questions or problems? Questions?
Sure.
Problems?
Sure.
No problems. It all makes sense. My question is in the insurance
Right.
piece where it says minimum coverage, blah, 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 that will cover any vehicle towed, impounded, or stored. To me, that kind of implies one vehicle, as opposed to all vehicles stored.
I can change that. It would be all because it relates. They have to, I think, be able to store at least a minimum of 5.
Yeah,
So it would have to do that. But again, that can be changed to reflect that. That's sure.
Next.
Okay, and last, just to go back to our discussion about the loan agreement with that. Oh, I'm sorry. You can- whatever you want.
No, I'm not supposed to. Well, you're not voting. Oh, all right, you're going over there. It's fine.
You can be, you can,
No, that's whatever.
we
No
have,
worries.
I previously sent you folks the draft loan
Yeah.
agreement. Then we got some comments back from the Sing Sing Prison Museum with regard most specifically to the provision, which, and I will read what we had, which is the village may recall the loan materials for any reason upon 30 days written notification. Immediate action may be taken if care and exhibition of the loan materials do not meet the conditions of the loan. That's the language proposed. The revision proposed by SSPM was the village may recall the loan materials upon 30 days written notification if care and exhibition of the loan materials do not meet the conditions of the loan. The museum will have 10 days to satisfy the concerns of the village. If the village's concerns are not satisfied, the museum will return the loan materials. The mayor had made some comments with regard to this. I did just want to hear from the other folks on the board. I am very happy with sending back to Sing Sing Prison Museum what was our original language and basically say, this is what it is. I think their concern, from what I gather from the language, is that they essentially don't want the village to come in one day and say, we want the materials back. Again, remember, they're the village's materials. So that's really where this is. I'm just looking for guidance from the board, and then I can let the folks know at the museum.
I'm fine with the original draft.
Which is what I
Okay.
stated. I don't know if people have questions or understand why.
Okay.
Okay,
Good. That's that.
all right. Anything else?
Just exec. So do we have a motion to go into exec for matters of personnel and litigation?
So moved.
Second.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're voting. Aye. We never have a problem getting that unanimous vote. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. It is 5 minutes of 10. And
Mayor, just one last thing. Early voting starts the 25th. Since we
forgot to
don't have a
say that.
meeting next week, because it's the fifth
Right.
Wednesday, early voting starts Saturday.
right, and it's great to have that opportunity for early voting in Westchester. It's in the mayor's message, it's on websites everywhere. Just remember that the day before Election Day is the one day you can't do early voting. That's the important piece to remember. But starting Saturday, you could do early voting. We appreciate your time, and as Stuart Kahan just mentioned, no meeting next Wednesday. Have a good evening.